We're here just to make sure the record is on time. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for being here to our meeting today. My name is Reni Rueda. I'm the founder of Poliversia, and we are as well here today with Rames Hello, who is the chair or the founder of it's the Academy of Excellence
for
in
sales.
Sales. The Academy
Academy for Sales Excellence. Yes.
Academy for Sales Excellence in Dubai. And today we are going to welcome to all of you who are here with us today. Today we are going to go through a presentation on this short webinar, which main goal is to try to build a community around Poliversia called Why Your Mana. Thank you very much. Welcome. Thank you very much, Mana. Thank you. Welcome for being here. Why your sales systems failed, and a discussion about communication or communication technology, or the integration of different type of communication technology as a critical system in which organizations, any type of organization, operates and will operate on the future. Mana, thank you very much for being here. I don't know who is Mgrol Ashmal. Thank you very much for being here as well. So I will start sharing the screen. So please follow me and let me know if you can hear me. KTA, welcome also for being here. And let me share the screen. Thank you very much. Let me share the screen right now. And let me know if you can see. Can you see me? And can you see the screen? Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So welcome, Anna. Thank you very much for confirming. So we are going to have a short conversation about the way in which organizations conceive the process of integrated systems, especially when it comes to scalability, when it comes to growth, and particularly when it comes to sales. Please, if any of you have the microphone turned on, if you can turn it off, if you can turn off the microphone. Mohammed, welcome also here. Mohammed, thank you very much. If you can simply turn on the microphone, we are going later on to take a closer look of all the guests that are joining us here today. Thank you very much. So we are going to have a conversation about the way in which processes of integration of different tools for communication operate in organizations. And when we speak about operating in organizations, we also speak about organizations that focus on growth and sale. Mario, ¿me ayudas con los micrófonos? Si puedes, por favor. Muchas gracias. Catalina, thank you very much. Welcome. Welcome, Mohammed. Thank you very much for your presence. Mana, welcome. So, my name is Reni. I'm the founder of Poliversia, and before engaging on this conversation with all of you very shortly, I will try to share with you a little bit of the main reasons by which we are conducting this type of conversation, which will be just the beginning of numerous type of conversations to take place in the future to come, pretty much every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, and definitely every month, either online as well as in-person conversations that we are going to have conduct pretty much from this very first effort. In order to create or to generate a community with awareness about the way in which technology operates and integrates with different systems, and particularly with the systems that operate on sales systems. So many years ago, I have been working into different fields, but particularly I've been working in academia since many years ago, as well as on the private startup ecosystem, maybe 14, 15 years ago. And when it was a little bit of the boom of social media, a little bit of a larger evolution or maturity of the way in which social media and the internet and digital technology was already moving forward. But still 14, 15 years ago, social media was in my opinion, in its own infancy. It was not as mainstream as we believe it is today. And communication technology mean not that developed didn't have that much impact in the way in which organizations operate. Organizations in general terms are systems that have a specific goal, they have as well a specific input, and they try to into different elements of that system, of those mechanisms, generate processes of communication, both inwards, meaning with the actors inside the system, as well as outwards with actors outside the system. And this is what usually we call it a community. Miguel, thank you very much for being Miguel Cheng. Thank you very much for being here. Mohammed Ali Al thank you very much for being here. Also, welcome. Um, on that premise, then finally we managed to live in the type of societies in an environment in which we live today. One may wonder that the most original approach in which communication technology allow us to operate into large-scale systems deals with technology. But the truth of the matter is that communication, as well as processes of social coordination, go beyond and before that. And one of the reasons in which we live today in the environments in which we live, which are highly advanced, highly industrialized, highly technologically oriented, is because there have been non-digital process of communication that have existed before, like for example, money, capital. When you make a decision, when you make a choice to buy or to sell something, you are not thinking that much about the who is the person in front of you or where exactly this comes from. You know it comes from China. You don't know who produced that, but you are communicating a requirement, something that you need. And on the other side of this process, of this transaction, of this interaction, somebody is getting that message to you and is delivering back information or a product or a service or anything like that. So when we speak about communication and communication in organizations, we from the very beginning know that organizations at every level require processes of communication, and today with digital technology, communication is also a new reality. And this is one of the reasons why we believe that growth inside of an organization take place in the arena of communication inside as well as outside. With whom outside? With customers. With whom outside? With sellers. With whom outside? With a community, with an audience, and so on and so forth. Now the question is, what are you going to do with all that information? Because there is, in an organization, the information that you are able to process as a single point of reception as a person is very limited. But in an organization, information is everywhere. In the moment in which a person reaches you in order to book a meeting with you, you want to have more information about that person, and there is an event that happens that can lead you to many other things happening in the future. When you have a seminar or a webinar like this, and you engage in a conversation with a community, you get more information. When you make a sale, when you make a purchase, you get information, you know more clients, you build up more community, and so on and so forth. We cannot, as humans, process all that information. We need systems. And the easiest way in order today to operate for us with systems is to utilize technology. Technology allows us to systematize all this information of the different actors, shareholders, stakeholders, and any type of actors that engage with our organization. If we don't have a system in place, all those processes of interaction, all those processes of communication are lost. So you have to integrate different type of systems in your organization, and as much as possible, you have to make sure you are able to set up entities or environment in which those systems automatically work on the back end of your organization. automatically, that you don't need to be present there. How to set up a system like this? That's a different type of conversation. Which type of elements should be somehow pulled by the system in order to initiate actions inside your organization? That's a totally different type of conversation. But the systems should be in place. And this is something that most of the time many organizations, companies, solopreneurs, sellers don't really have put in place, never have think about it. So they try to multiply their presence in the organization without technology in a model that is not scalable. Because you can pour your attention into one client. You can pour out your attention maybe into three or a customer or a person that is near to your organization. You can communicate with that person, with one, with two, three, four, five. You cannot communicate with 20. You definitively cannot communicate with 50. And maybe not even in the span of your life, you can communicate with thousands. So if you don't have a system in order to make sure that all that information is not lost and to guide through a specific community in the process in which you are engaging with people outside of your organization, if you don't communicate, not hearing, but communicate with them, then you are not really out there. You are inward oriented. You are not outward oriented as an organization. Communication technology has evolved over the last few years in a direction that many of us are not really fully aware of. Today, with artificial intelligence, even these processes of communication acquire a new dimension. There are also in many technological stack processes of automation. You automate different tasks inside your organization. You use digital services. But there is one problem that, if I may, and by the way, you can raise your hand at any moment and ask a question if you want. We will be Nasser. Thank you very much. Welcome as well for being here. Thank you, Nasser. Very appreciated. Many times you don't know exactly, and maybe again, I was saying that if you any of you have a question, simply raise your hand and you can ask the question. I'm glad to interrupt this conversation at any point. Many times we don't know why different digital technologies are not integrated among each other. In the moment in which digital technologies are not integrated, there are gaps. There are some sort of spaces that are not filled for the ultimate customer or for the organization. In our hemisphere, or in many of our countries, in the Middle East region, in Europe, in Latin America, in the United States, we have technologies that oftentimes over time specialize in one single task. And many of these technologies and many of these applications manage to grow rapidly, strongly, rapidly, without any other precedent that has taken place in the past. And they definitively manage to specialize strongly in one single task. Most recently, a few solutions out there have tried to pick up from that problem into the digital ecosystem, trying to share and to interact with many other internal services in order to allow an organization, a person, or a customer to communicate and to integrate many of those processes of coordination, communication, sales, digital presence, automation, and many other processes in a much more smooth way. However, even today, and maybe you can do an analysis from your own organization. Miss Aida, thank you very much for being here. Welcome. Thank you very much, Aida. Even today, and you can take a closer look from your own organization, the majority of organizations, when it comes to processes of communication and coordination with their clients, with their sellers, with their stakeholders, with their shareholders, with all the amount of information that is built in an organization every day, they use different disconnected tools. They use a set of tools that cannot integrate different services with each other, and different set of tools that certainly provide benefits for those companies and definitively also provide an advantage for the organization that is using the tool. But the tool is disconnected. And the tool is not only disconnected, the data that is created, the information, the critical information of your organization that is passing through that specific tool does not belong to your organization. It belongs to the company behind that specific tool. The lead or the person who wants to engage in a commercial or any type of organizational interaction or relation with you as an individual or with your company or your organization, that single data of the lead, who is that person, doesn't stay with you. It stays with the organization. Your brand and the way in which you showcase your organization to the exterior goes also through the channel of that organization. When you want to have, for example, a video conference with the majority of people, you use Zoom, and Zoom does not integrate many other services that you need in your organization. And this is the way in which typically, as you can see on the slide in front of you, you can take a picture of this slide, and I will also as well share with you a QR code of our communities to continue this conversation, to continue these conversations every 3 weeks, every month, as soon as we can. Hopefully, also we can do in-person events here in Dubai or maybe in other countries. But what we finally found on this situation is that typically any organization just accumulate a lot of different tools that are not integrated with each other, that keep the information that you are generating for them, that do not allow you to reduce costs, because in order to have different services in your organization you have to rely in numerous stack, in numerous applications, numerous platforms, and at the end you end up serving in a great extent their interests, which definitively provide a service, but maybe not necessarily be on the best interest of your organization. I can go even through the detail of some instances in the way in which technology and specifically some digital tools over the last few decades have evolved, specifically tools that come from Europe or the United States. But most of them over time end up simply specializing in one single task. And this phenomena is in contrast with the way in which highly integrated digital tools operate in other parts of the world or other regions. Of course, there may be some reasons for this, and we can definitively engage in some of those reasons, from economic reasons to entrepreneurial reasons and maybe even political reasons. But the point is that at the end of the day, organizations don't count with one single structure of or stack from which they can nurture their day-to-day operations. Some of those elements include, for example, when it comes to stack, solutions or technology to interact with social media or to try to interact with traffic sources. Main social media like networks like Facebook, like Twitter, like Instagram or X, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, and others. On the other side, they require a stack or they require a provider in order to have a host, in order to develop a landing page, in order to communicate outside what their brand is about, what the content, the activity that they are doing, built up with their community. And then we have at least two disconnected pieces here. Then they need to interact with their clients. And this is definitively not integrated with the traffic sources, is not integrated with their digital presence. So they also need CRM. We have three tools already. They need also in many CRMs to leave their own database to try to identify the profiles of their customers, but the tool of the CRM is not necessarily connected with the traffic source. And in some instances, most recently, definitely some of the tools are more connected with landing pages and forms, but maybe it's not their ultimate goal. So you have at least currently three disconnected tools for the stack. Then you need automations, which have become omnipresent pretty much in all serious CRMs today. But each automation is also determined, as we can see later, from the very process from which that automation starts. Because you cannot automate something without having events that initiate the automation, which we call trigger events. And the type of trigger events that you have in your organization also define the type of automation that you want in your organization. Later on, we are going to talk about those trigger events, and we are going to better understand how they work and how different type of automations end up having different results. So you have at least four pieces on the puzzle. You also need scheduling tools. You need to make appointments with your community. You need to do consultations with your community in your organization. You want to charge for those appointments, for those consultations. And then you also need to have integrated payment systems, among many other things, because in the equation, you can as well include, for example, defining the terms upon which different type of offers are defined to your public, waiting lists, registration formularies, webinars, seminars, meetings. Yes, hello? Webinars, seminars, meetings, and so on and so forth. Ahmad, thank you very much. Thank you very much for being here. Welcome. Thank you very much for being here. Webinars, seminars, meetings, and many other elements that are interconnected with this. So, what we have really are disarticulating tools that do not really allow to support processes of organization and communication in your organization. So this is what we call systems that are break. And this is why sometimes when it comes to the growth of a specific organization, we say that sometimes some sales systems fail. There are different disconnected tools. They capture a lead, but that lead does not propagate internally in your organization. They have different events happening every day, every minute, every hour, but triggers are not integrated on the back end, so all that information is lost. The synchronization or the process of management of all that information that arrives to your organization is manual. It's not automated. And then later on, we can have a conversation about artificial intelligence and the way in which artificial intelligence can jump into this. Because this is, I hope, also another discussion if you have any question that we can raise later. And of course, when it comes to the way in which you scale and growth in an organization, you don't have data, meaning that you cannot track or trace the different events that happen in your organization. You don't have data. So these elements are elements that play around any type of organization, from public institutions to private institutions to business oriented organizations, or even to educational institutions. In every aspect, each and every one of those elements play against the capacity of the organization to move forward in a process of growth. Okay? Saying this, we have here what we call different type of models in which those interactions take place inside an organization. The majority of organizations, unfortunately, but for natural reasons, because in order to adjust a specific system of communication inside your organization, you need a system, you need tools, you need a digital system. The majority of organizations rely on sequential models, meaning A generates or create an action into B, B generates or create an action into C, C into D, and so on and so forth. This is a sequential model. This is a model that is linear, meaning that it doesn't really go to the way in which naturally interaction or communication takes place, because every one of us behaves differently in an organization. A person that wants maybe to have information about your organization, if he doesn't receive the information the first time, maybe he will not call the second time. Other people who wants to engage with your organization the first time and receives information from your organization immediately may be willing to escalate that interaction. And if you are not escalating and identifying that profile of interaction in your organization, you will lose that person. Some people are customers of your organization. They want to learn more about you or learn more about a specific sector with industry level experience, and they want to keep engaged with you. Others want to buy a product from you. Others may not be willing to buy on the first moment, but they are willing to learn more about how things in your organization works. In each and every one of those instances, we see what we call a real interaction dynamic. The way in which organizations interact with people is not linear, is aleatory. And the majority of organizations have different linear systems, what we call funnels, structures that capture the interest of a client, a person, an individual in your organization, maybe to purchase a product, maybe to be part of your organization, to use your service, to try to offer also a service to your organization. But then you try to put the person in the same funnel, everyone on the same funnel, independently of the person or independently of the behavior of the person. As a consequence, you don't get the best of that stakeholder. You don't get the best of that contact or that lead, because real interaction happens in an arena with a customer that sometimes is not fully sure about you. He maybe not be willing to pay immediately with you. However, he wants to have a consultation with you. He may not be willing immediately to acquire a product or a service from you, but maybe he wants to have a meeting or prepare an event with you. He may be not be the immediate perfect client, the specific client of your organization, but he wants to maybe learn more about you and then at the end have a purchase with you. And then you don't want to lose that person because it's part of your community. So it is important for you to keep working and working and working, and that's what we call real interaction. Real interaction is not linear. So real behavior operates aleatorily. You don't really know how each one of the persons that interact with your organization want to communicate or to coordinate actions with you. And for that reason, you have to customize different processes of engagement or different processes of coordination and organization with each and every one of them. Before we jump onto the analysis of a few specific examples, like standard examples, because also our time is limited and we want also to to engage very soon Rames on this conversation, saying again, welcome Rames. Rames, hello, is joining us. Rames, if you want to present yourself to the floor, please go ahead. Thank you very much, Rames.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Rani, for this lovely, I would say, ideas, lovely ideas. Again, as the founder of the Academy for Sales, I've been operating in Dubai for the last 16 years, since 2010. And the way that I built the academy was, if you go back to 1989, which is almost 36 years ago, I started um, selling knives. I used to sell these types of knives back door to door in America. So I learned the old fashioned model where you pick up the phone and talk with a client, right? And from prospecting, presenting, closing, getting referrals, and following up on that. Back at the time, it was all done on paper, on then it was on Excel sheets. Then with time, it became a bit more sophisticated in terms of CRM systems. And I'll tell you that as a business owner, I struggled and I struggled to to integrate all these things, right? And as you said, no matter how great I am, I can have maybe more than 20 conversations. Okay, I can have a little bit more, but let me tell you, at one point in time, if I don't have, if I didn't have systems, then all the work came on me as the founder, not just to speak and to consult and to create content, but then to do a lot of the admin work through my people, having to explain and repeat and not having everybody aligned. So what you're saying is actually music to my ears as a as the founder and uh, basically founder and speaker, main speaker at the Academy for Sales, also professor at Holt International Business School. I again, I can talk a lot, but the whole objective today is, again, I one of the reasons why I've accepted to be part of this is because I feel the pain. You talk about, multiple systems are being created and they're really brilliant by themselves, but they're really horrible when you have a business that needs to run and engage with all these different bits and pieces and trying to make sense of that. And I can tell you personally, I have Zoho One CRM, I have GHL as another CRM. I utilize Zoom, I use Teams, right? All this before now what's happening in Poliversia, not to mention the payment gateways I've done before, webinar slash uh, LinkedIn lives, YouTube lives. So again, the technology is there. Every time you want to find a way to reach audiences, the algorithms are demanding live interaction, and live interaction can only happen at this moment with humans like you and I. We're real. This is not an AI talking right there, right? And that's really what drives engagement. That's what will build loyalty. That's what builds a relationship before it can build loyalty. So you have awareness, interest, consideration. So again, people buy from people. They don't buy from a system. But the interaction that is planned, that is properly executed, makes that interaction, as you said, more real. It's not linear. It is on demand and it is relevant, right, based on interest. So I'll stop here, and you can take it from there.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Rames, for your input. We definitely want to hear with you, and Rames, I think, has been a great acquaintance, becoming, getting to know each other, hopefully a friend with whom we have engaged in these conversations recently, and we have learned from him and from his own experience into the Academy for Sales Excellency, for excellency on sales here in Dubai. So really, really, we want also to get first-hand experience about the past, and their own uh, actions, and the way in which the real life events happen, and real life organizations interact with customers and with leads and with contacts and so on. So in order, our time is limited. Our time is limited, and we are going to wrap up a little bit of conversation before I want to move into Rame's experience and into Rame's input at the end of this conversation. And I want to point out, because there is a lot of information here, to point out to the way in which usually any process of a system starts. And one of the reasons by which currently different tools out there are either very different from each other in the way in which they communicate or they interact or coordinate tasks with their community, one, as well as very different or with a totally different perspective of the way in which engagement and community is built. Many times, many of these tools rely on disconnected information that most of the time originates in the effort of the person behind the organization or in the database of the person behind the organization. But many of these tools don't provide also solutions in order to audience building, engagement, outreach, multi platform live interaction, or maybe communication technology. In general terms, these build up a different system. I believe it will be a much more larger and complex conversation to assess exactly which system, at least currently, is the best, because different systems serve a specific demand from different organizations. There are organizations that indirectly bring audiences. There are other organizations that they bring audiences directly. There are currently so-called influencers, people who is out there in social media industrially generating huge amounts of content every day, and not only every day, I will say sometimes even every hour, in order to make sure that they dominate the exposure to different types of public. However, sometimes in many of those capacities, in many of those instances in which the capacity of a single individual to generate exposure is not able to be somehow channeled or rerouted to the different processes in which you engage with your community in your organization, all that effort is lost. And this is what we call, at least for the sake of this organization, for this presentation, as well as in Poliversia, different trigger events. Actions that initiate, actions that come from the outside and initiate certain steps, certain processes in your system. And particularly in the case of Poliversia, but today we are not going to get that much to the details of Poliversia, the majority of these actions come from outreach systems, systems that try to communicate to the outside, and communicating to the outside and increasing exposure of your organization to the outside are permanently pulling information about your community. They can pull information when you create an event and someone registers in the event. They can pull information when, for the same registration, you reroute them to a social media, when you create a meeting, when they set up an appointment with you, when they make a purchase, when they join a single activity, like this activity that we are doing, when they visit you, or when a booking is created. This is what we call triggers. And different systems have different triggers depending of the organization. Usually, many organizations rely on channels that are paid, meaning they do not depend from your capacity of generate content. They depend from your economic capacity to pay for ads, either in Google Ads, in Facebook. in Instagram, LinkedIn, and others, which are the most standard channels. And definitively, I'm confident most of you are fully familiar with them. And in every case, in every time you interact with on one of them, you have to interact to interact independently. You're not integrating all of them at the same time. There are other channels that are totally organic, in which the social media channel is out there for you, and it depends of your effort to make sure that you reach a specific audience. And there are other channels that combine those different elements into one single bridge with your organization, which could be live streaming channels. With some of those channels, you have different system entry points, we call it, which is small devices, small mechanisms that connect the audience with your landing pages, forums, webinar registrations, booking, checkouts, and so on and so forth. And so, on that way, you initialize a process of communication with your community. Since our time is limited, um, we simply want to point out, before I want to give the floor to Rames in a few moments, before thanking all of you for joining us today and sharing with you also our QR code. I don't know, Mario, if you are around, if you can share also the QR code on the chat or the links of our community so that we continue this conversation every 2 weeks, every month. We want to continue this conversation and to learn more and to build more and to make more experiments in real life about the ways in which communication, sales, growth, community building operates. But I want to close simply pointing out how the importance of integrated digital tools are a totally break event in the environment of community building and systems of sales, systems of growth. Poliversia, the company that I represent, and the company also that I founded a few years ago, is one of the solutions in which we are glad to conduct more research and to conduct education onto how to integrate in one single technological solution, in this case, Poliversia, all these different conversion types in which we want the community to convert with us economically, to identify the behavior of the patterns of behavior of that community, and to have this feedback loop forever in one single database, in one single point of contact, which is our platform, Poliversia in the future. And that's definitively the way in which we see communication. I want to give now the floor to Rames to do the final remarks of this short conversation. I know this is a short conversation. Maybe some of you have questions as well. You can simply raise the hand. You can see the hand raise button in the down menu if you want to raise your hand to ask any question. But saying that, I want to simply close saying that what we want to educate is and to work with you technologically and organizationally is to understand in the integrated systems of communication at Poliversia. We are here to learn from your experience, to work with you, and to keep building up this community. Rames, the floor is yours.
Right. And maybe if you can type in the chat a bit, what industry are you in? What business are you currently running, plan to run, or what industry are you currently representing? I think that can give us a good feel. I'm gonna maybe share a story, maybe close with that story. And before February 28th, life was, at least in this part of the world, life was great, right? We lived in one of the most economically developed region. Um, I have been here, lived here since 2004, so built my business for the last 16 years, and a lot of the the business where I have gotten a lot of my business has been because of my network, right? Because of my network. Now, guess what happened on February 28th? Well, I had a lot of live interactions with clients. There was about a certain amount, more than 500,000 dirhams of deals in the pipeline that involved live delivery, that involved consulting and coaching and training for organization. But all that went up in smoke on the 28th of February. And what that meant that as a business owner, um, maybe I could pay salary for the month of February, but the pipeline that was bringing business, bringing salaries for March and April and beyond, well, that pipeline just dried up. And as a business owner, it's not easy for you to see your life's work just stop. And I had relied mainly on live interaction. And I told you I had fragmented systems. So, not a fully, as Rennie was describing, a fully integrated, a fully aligned, and a fully logical way of communicating with clients. I relied on communicating with C level where I have a relationship that I was able to convert. But everything stopped on the 28th of February. Now I have some good news. Some good news is that okay, for 10 days everything stopped, right? But with that, I got some time to dig deep inside. This is where the imperfections started to surface. This is where I had realized that whatever I had built was good, but not good enough. It did not sustain a shakeup like what happened on February 28th. Well, since that time, my business has transformed into an online business. And today I have more than 50 different individuals in two different cohort of a program called Selling Through Uncertainty. People maybe stopped buying, stopped doing business, trying to protect whatever funds they had. They were holding to their funds. But what they soon realized is holding to their fund does not cost zero. It actually cost them more to buy the same products just 1 month later because things became difficult. The supply chain to this country became more restricted. So there is supply and demand. The value of the goods went up. The inability to get certain products have raised the prices, which made a lot of buyers who slowed down buying think twice. And that's what I did. I worked with sellers to actually who were in a way paralyzed and afraid of calling the client because in Arabic they say haram, bendito, right? So I don't know if they're gonna buy the war, the this, the that. So that really created some confusion. But the exciting part is built the website, communicated with the outer world, and did many of the things that Rennie is describing. And now it's all about building it better the second time and building it better the third time. So anytime there is a recess, it's the time to go back to the drawing board and look and see what's working and what's not, and how can I make it better. And I'm really glad to have met Rennie, to have found Rennie, to have listened, been able to understand the big idea of uh, Polyversia, and we are currently in the process of integrating and actually leaving a lot of these fragmented systems and discovering that promise there. So looking forward to sharing some more updates as we continue on this journey. If you have any questions, go ahead. I'll stop right there.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Any questions to the community who is joining us? They can either write the question in the chat or simply raise the hand and ask the question. There are two questions that I put here on the chat. How
Mhm.
integrated systems can help your organization? How do you think integrated systems, can help your organization, and how technology it can help the processes of community building and communication in your organization? So please feel free to ask your question. We are here with Sarah, Hamed, Nasser, Catalina, Ashmal, Aida, So, so tell us, maybe how do you think integrated systems have had a role in your organization, or any question?
I'll share a small thought in here. I worked with a company called Unilever Food Solutions, and Unilever sells food, right? So we sell Knorr, Hellman's product, Lipton tea back at the time. And food is the nutrients for the body, right? It's food is what keeps us as human beings going. I think the food for companies might not be the nutrients that we humans put inside of us, but the food that keeps companies going is the input. And the input is actually the data that's going in. And they say nothing happens until something is sold. And if today you're not identifying potential opportunities, you're not nurturing those opportunities, your business cannot survive. Your business will not have the nutrients, will not be able to actually do what it's supposed to do, because at the end, if you're not exchanging values, so how do you get paid? Well, if you want to get paid $100, you better give value worth $1,000 so that somebody feels they're getting real value from whatever product or service that you're currently they're paying for. And the bigger the value that you're able to give someone, right, the more likely it is